It's a bird emergency. I'm Grant Williams. I'm your bird nerd with no special science skills, but something a bit different. Something I wanted to give a bit of a try. We've bounced into another lockdown in this part of town, in this part of the country, and as a sort of, I don't know, my part to try and help out the people who rely on tourism in COVID normal. Let's talk about COVID normal. We're going to do tour guide Thursdays for a while, and so today's tour guide is Janine Duffy, who is the co-founder and one of the directors of Echidna Walkabout Tours. But the reason that Janine is guest number one for Tour Guide Thursday is Janine's a bird nut, a birder, one of us, the bird nerds. So welcome, Janine. Thanks for joining me. Let's have a bit of a talk about your tours and a part of the country that we both love. How are you?
Oh, great, Grant. It's so good to be here. Thank you for inviting me on and for this new series, Tour Guide Thursdays.
How has COVID knocked you guys about? Because, let's do a bit of history of Echidna Walkabout Tours. When did you start? Why did you start? And what do you regard as your specialties?
We started in 1992. Oh, it's a long time ago. And we actually started with an intention to get some people into places like East Gippsland to see some of Victoria's fantastic wildlife and natural places. My partner Roger had worked for the Australian Conservation Foundation setting up some of those big national parks in East Gippsland. And one of the things they were talking about in the 80s was how tourism could help a lot of these towns and a lot of these regional areas survive the transition from logging. And he wanted to do it. He wanted to prove that it could be done. And so we did it. And it was the best decision I think we've ever made, Grant.
When people think about East Gippsland or Gippsland in general, I think a lot of people turn their minds immediately to the high country. But for mine, and Wilson's Promontory, let's not forget that. But for mine, the jewel in the crown is Crowingong National Park, which is a non-contiguous series of coastal strips that sort of runs from Malakuta, sort of, how far? Well, almost back to, not quite as far back as Lake's Entrance, but that really wild, remote, beautiful beaches and inlets is all contained within Crowingong. And there's some amazing birds to be seen in there. So you go there, don't you?
Oh, yeah. And it's one of my favourite parts of Gippsland and really underrated. I agree, Grant. We started off leading walks along the Wilderness Coast from French's Narrows near Orbost at the Snowy River mouth, all the way along that 100 kilometres of protected coastline back in the 90s. And I'm really proud to be able to say that seeing ground parrots, seeing hooded plovers, seeing some southern emu wrens, every day I went along there in those days. Was a very, it's helped made me a birder, actually. I was very, very fortunate to do that then. But there is so much in Eastern Victoria that Melburnians don't even know about. Jewel in the crown, that's what we've got over there.
How many of the neophemas have you ticked off along there?
Along there, turquoise. I don't think we see blue-ring parrots over there much, actually. That's all, I think.
Well, actually, that surprises me because I've seen blue wings along that
Have you?
that lock sport sea
Yep.
spray
Yep.
area.
Further
So
west.
I'm surprised they haven't cropped up on your radar a bit further east. Hang on.
Turks, all right though.
Yeah,
Oh, can't go past a Turk.
no, that's a good get.
Yeah.
Ground parrots, how do you think they're faring after the fires?
Not good. Not good. So quite a few people have put in a fairly intensive effort to find some over near Malakuta. We ran the Malakuta Birders Big Weekend in March, and a lot of us were looking for them. No luck, none at all. On the other hand, we saw about 18 southern emu wrens, which was way more than anyone expected there to be there after that fire. So there's been some, highlights of hope over there, but I think ground parrots were hit very hard. I'm sad to say.
That is really bad news, but there has look. Let's just preface the conversation with we're talking about the fires that engulfed a lot of the east coast of Australia, and what are we getting on to 2 years now, isn't it? This will be the third summer, I think, that when we come into it, we've had. Or are we only the second summer? It's only the second summer since the fires. Now, the eastern bristlebird is one of the specialties of that area that you could almost always hear them if you were in the far east, the Scrubby Country in Victoria. Are they cropping up nowadays on your tours?
We don't take tours so much across to Howe Flat, where they're now occurring, but we do go over there privately ourselves, or if we've got special birders with us, and they're doing okay, it appears. Most of Howe Flat wasn't burnt, thank God.
Thank goodness, yes.
I'll never forget actually watching that fire approach, watching it jump the inlet, which was a very bad moment in my life, because that country on the north side of Malakuta Inlet is paradise undiscovered. There's so few tracks in there. It's so underbirded. There could be almost anything there, really, and there's hardly anyone looking most of the time. But I was watching that fire approach, the jewel of Howe Flat, and I happened to be on a pelagic boat trip down at Eaglehawk Neck in Tasmania with Rowan Clark, and I said to him, "Thank goodness Howe Flat hasn't been taken." And he said, "Have you looked lately?" And I said, "What, the last few days?" He said, "It's heading that way, and we're sending in a rescue mission." And I was like, "Oh, no." So I thought, at that stage, we thought we were going to lose that as well. Which, not only is it the last hope for Victorian eastern bristlebirds, but the ground parrots, which had so much of their range taken. They are still living over there. Rowan found a couple of them, I believe, when he was doing research there after the fires, but not nearly as many as they should have found. So thank you, everyone who was involved in putting that out.
The only sort of positive I can ever pull out when I think of the plight of the ground parrot, and of course the western ground parrot's situation is absolutely perilous, but at least in Gippsland there are as you just mentioned, there are so many places where they could be that people very, very rarely are. And the birders who do go there maybe 2 or 3 times a year, the parrot just might not be hanging around in that area on the day that they're there. So that sort of knowing how remote and difficult to traverse so much of the eastern part of Victoria is, it's the only thing that you can sort of think, yeah, it'll be all right. I mean, it's not like so much of the rest of the country where people are living sort of cheek by jowl and everyone's familiar with the area. I mean, as you said, there's not even logging tracks in so much of the country, and it was never homesteaded, so the land holdings have not been cut up into 50-acre parcels. There's still massive amounts of public land that is basically not utilised except by four-wheel drivers and motorbike enthusiasts. Virtually nobody else goes in there.
You know what really surprised us, Malakuta Birds, which is my Facebook group over there, a local named Keith put up a picture of a white-eared monarch in his backyard. Right,
wow.
That no one saw that coming. This was in March after the fires. We even thought spectacled monarch might get into Malakuta eventually, but no one thought white-eared. But here was a picture, and he had a couple of pictures, said they've been here a couple of days. Well, you can imagine the birders in Melbourne who were not allowed to leave due to COVID, but probably steam, coming out of their ears at the thought of getting over there. But it gives you some idea.
Talking about you, Dooley.
I imagine there was steam. Everyone who wants it for their Vic list,
Yeah.
including me.
Yeah. That's the thing, though. That let's try and find a silver lining here. Is that every sort of tragedy like that is an opportunity for birds to extend their range, where they may never have had to if the pressure wasn't on them. So hopefully that means that they'll stay resident in the new areas and that the populations will eventually recover in their old range. But unfortunately, with fire, our plant life adapts to fire, but that there's a succession of habitats that happen after fire. You rarely get the same habitat back until maturity, which might be 30 years, might be 40 years, might be 80 years, might be 100 years. So, be really interesting to see what happens as they, as the special birders that you mentioned are monitoring these areas.
Yeah, I don't know that there is a silver lining to that fire, though, Grant. I think the only one you can see is that we get our act together now, because we can't go through that again. I think to even talk of recovery is sugarcoating. I think there will be a form of renewal, as you say. There'll be a different sort of forest that comes back, and there will be some animals that do perhaps extend their range. But it's bad. It's changed everything about our tourism business, by the way, and that's probably a positive thing, because we've lost interest in doing leisure travel for just its own sake. We do conservation travel now, and that's all we do. That's all we're interested in doing. I think we're on a very short timeline, on this planet, and we had better make the most and the best of the potential we have with travel. what we've found is that travellers, be they local or overseas, if given the opportunity to help nature, they will take it with both hands and they will run with it. And so tour operators need to give them that opportunity. We need to think of ways of saying to our travellers, do you want to help this animal? And this is what you can do to help it. It's not just a matter of pulling out your wallet. This is, why not clean up this beach? Why should there be rubbish on it? Why not pull out these weeds? They shouldn't be here. Why not submit all our sightings to eBird and iNaturalist and Bird Data? Because people are there excited to help. They want to change the way they use the planet, I think. And we have a responsibility to give them an opportunity for that.
When did your business take that turn where just leisure tourism, which I'm guessing before the pandemic was what paid the bills? When did you pivot? Let's use the jargon.
Yeah.
When did you pivot to only be interested in nature tourism, conservation tourism, beg your pardon? And what do you offer to your clients to actually make a difference for them to, after your tour, to actively make a difference?
We started this slow pivot in about 2012 when we started asking all of our guests to pull out a weed to help a koala. We were not sure that it would work, and some people laughed at us in the industry and said, that's not going to work. Well, you know what? It worked. People loved it. We've since pulled out 2.5 million bone seed weeds in the Yuyangs. And 99% of our guests are so enthusiastic about doing it, you can barely stop them.
So tell me how that started. What did you do? Were you driving along because you do a lot of koala tours, so let everyone in on that. That's one of your focus areas, and of course the stronghold for koalas nationally is Victoria. So and I use that term advisedly. Stronghold is probably not a word that should be used for koalas or any of our native animals except perhaps the eastern grey kangaroo. But you're driving along, you're on a tour. What do? You know there's a place with thousands of bone seed plants. Do you just pull up and go, hey, let's go and pull up a plant, do it for Victoria? How did this start?
It was a bit more organised than that. We had decided we wanted to bring in a conservation action on our tours, and we knew that koalas in the Yuyangs were affected by bone seed. So the way we knew that, Grant, is we take observations of every koala we see and a GPS location, and we could map the locations of koalas over the bone seed infestation and found that koalas were not where there was a lot of bone seed. So we thought, let's remove it and see what happens. And we found koalas using trees they had never used within days of us removing the bone seed from around the base.
Now, bone seed's stinky stuff. Do you reckon that might be what it is? They don't like walking through it to get to another tree? I
think they don't like walking through it. I think they're probably intimidated by what might be in it. I don't think it's nutritional, but they're certainly taking water and nutrients from the trees, but that would take longer than a couple of days to benefit the tree, wouldn't it? So I think it's a physical barrier.
Yeah, it's a traffic management issue, perhaps.
Yeah.
And for anyone who doesn't know, boneseed is a South African plant. It's got glossy green leaves. I, if you know the Goodenia ovata, the leaves look a little bit like that, but it's a daisy flower, but it has a fruit. It has a drupe, as I think it's a drupe, as the seeding body, which a lot of birds, certainly in the sort of urban fringes, the blackbirds and birds like that love eating it, and of course they poop it out. Now, but boneseed responds to fire. So anywhere where we have some burning, light burning particularly, boneseed loves it. But boneseed also loves sand dunes, loves that loose, friable soil that so much of the country is. It's a horrible thing. It stinks when the weeds are crushed. It has a horrible odour. A bit like what it always reminds me of is, the little cabbage white butterfly moths. When you're a kid, if you ever squashed one of the caterpillars, it smells like that. The horrible, stinky stuff. So I don't blame the koalas for not wanting to go anywhere near it. So removing the boneseed,
Yeah.
there's always bureaucracy when you want to do anything with land management. So were you going to private land or to public land? And did you ask anyone before you got started, or did you just go, hey, look at the good stuff we've done, seeking forgiveness after having done it?
We're on public land doing it in the Yangs Regional Park, but the park rangers there already have an adopt a block system where they encourage people to pull it out. So we knew we were on very safe ground there. But of course, we ran it past them. They were very supportive of it. A bit amazed at how much we managed to do. Our 2 blocks are enormous, but we managed to keep them clear of mature weeds now. We've cleared 120 hectares over on the eastern side, which just demonstrates that even though we're only taking out 10 people at a time on a day, a small number of people doing something very regularly, doing a little bit very often, is very powerful. In fact, I would suggest it's maybe even more powerful than getting 1,000 people there on one day.
Well,
just because there's so little damage. Yeah.
And it's the regular upkeep, so that when a seedling occurs, it gets ripped out. It's not so that it's wrist height rather than knee height, because the knee height plant, if it's missed, is then a shoulder height plant, and by then it's fruited 4 or 5 times. So yeah, the key is to exhaust the seed bank in the soil, and the only way you can do that is to regularly attend and get them. So how big did you say those 2 blocks are?
One's 120 hectares. And the other one, it wasn't as infested, but we're probably talking another 50 hectares that we've cleared. This was before COVID, so it's gotten a bit of a stranglehold again since, but we'll get it again, so don't worry, we'll be on top of it. But for me, it demonstrated to us how keen the travelling public were to help. And then, of course, we decided to take it further and push their boundaries. So we started to remove ghost nets, the fishing nets off the headland at Cape Conran. You know Cape Conran, I imagine.
Yeah, and that's and now you're the first person who's ever mentioned that to me, even in conversation with seabirders. I have never heard of anyone organised going out to pick up that bloody fisherman's refuse, which is on every beach, in every pile of rocky outcrop, everywhere along the coast. Massive problem for seabirds.
Yeah. And it washes back out. I mean, it might be caught up in rocks when you go there and you think, oh, this is safe, and it's too difficult. But you get a storm and it's going to go straight back out there. We've pulled up piles of it.
It crops up in hooded plover territory, or it crops up where where the fulmar that is paying the one-off visit to the coast in New South Wales, something that's dropped in Mallacoota can easily end up in Port Stephens. It's just a matter of time.
And it's not hard to do this kind of thing. You just need someone who's organised to figure out what's the best way of doing it. So we'd go in there with some big, strong scissors to cut the cable, and a couple of garbage bags. And each time we went, we'd just take out about 2 garbage bags worth of the ghost net. And then a couple of years ago, we got it all. And we're looking for more. It's like, we need a new project now. Done.
Now, dear listener, if you're wondering why I selected this particular tour company and this particular individual to talk to, this is an idea why. That what I always say, Janine, is that you can't do everything, but just do something.
Yes.
And you're the perfect example of how a very small action can have a massive impact on the environment that we are all walking through day after day. So
thank you.
If you're at, so I just say to people, if you're at the pier and you see a bundle of twine all just sitting there and someone's left their refuse behind because they got frustrated because their line got tangled, just pick it up and go and put it in the bin. Or better still, I wouldn't put it in the bin at the pier. I would take it home and put it in your bin so you know that it's not going to be blown out of the bin if a dog knocks it over next to the beach. I would take it as far away from the beach as you can to dispose of it. But these are just little things. And
that's right. That really is right. And when people are traveling, their mind is very open to new ideas. And that's why we travel. I think the sort of traveller who wants to experience a new place, wants to see things anew. And this is the time when you can introduce a concept to someone, and doing it is way better than talking about it. But you just do it, and we have a great old laugh. And usually, it was accompanied by some alcohol, and some nibbles as a celebration afterwards, because it was always held just before sundown at Cape Conran. And so it just becomes a bit of a highlight of the day. Why not?
Why not indeed? Why not indeed? Should be a condition of your permit to operate if you're going into public lands that you do something like this, I reckon. I mean, because we know that the Parks Department are massively underfunded. They can't do all the work they're charged with. And in terms of a priority, painting the toilets tends to be more important than actually picking up fishing line off the coast. And I totally get why. I totally get why the priorities are the way they are. But we need more. And that's it. Where everybody that manages public land is always out there with a begging bowl because there's never enough. So let's use the tourists. Let's use the tourists. So
they want to do it.
Well, motivated tourists will do massive amounts of work, as you have attested to with the bone seed removal. And what always amazes me is that governments will do things like, well, let's use prisoners, right? let's use prisoners to do work. Now, I'm not going to knock the work that they do, and look, there's prison gangs working out there around Gippsland Lakes and whatnot all the time, but they're not highly motivated individuals for that task. So, wouldn't it be better to put the funding into people who are highly motivated and actually make a difference? So, just putting that out there. All right, let's talk about your tours. Let's talk about first your specifically bird-focused tours. What are you currently able to run, and what have you got planned in the, let's say, the medium future? We don't know what's happening in the short-term future.
We have got some fantastic things in the medium future. And we've been doing a few tours, actually, in these windows that we've had. Mungo in southern New South Wales is a particular favourite and has been very popular. You know Mungo.
I do. I love Mungo. Been there a few times, and it's I've been there once. The first time I went was a school tour, so that was very structured and we didn't see much. But the next time I went on my own, and Mungo is a challenging place to be on your own when you spend a fair bit of time, because it kind of gets you, it gets into you, and it's hard work if you go there in the warmer months. It's very hard work.
Oh, yes.
And of course,
go there.
When do we have our long holidays in this part of the world? We have it in, So
we don't do tours at that time of year.
I've been there in the height of summer, and it's a really different experience than going there in the cooler months. But it's still an amazing place. But what we
have seen some birds there, Grant. My God.
Well, that's what I want you to tell me about, because I bet I didn't see a fraction of what you saw, just simply because of the heat.
The heat, yeah, it's hard. We do it a bit like they do it in Africa, in that we go out very early in the morning, and even in the cooler months, it's still the best time for a lot of bird activity. And then we come back and have a relaxing lunch at the lodge, and then go back out again in the afternoon. We've really found with the arid country, and with most of Australia really, the crepuscular lifestyle is so much better for birders and tourists seeing wildlife. And you just modify the day around that. So we often spend.
I haven't got my dictionary on the desk.
Sorry. It's so much more of a mammal term. Crepuscular is dawn and dusk active. Sorry, it's not something I normally drop in normal. That's okay.
Well, I don't usually pretend I know what I'm talking about if I don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm happy to be the village idiot. That's my role. So.
No, that's okay. So there's a spot I must recommend to anyone who's going there, even if you go there without us, is take your dinner, like get toasted sandwiches or something, but take your dinner and your beer if you want it, and go to Viga's Well on the other side of the Mungo Ring Road for sunset. No one else will be there because they've all gone home for beer o'clock at the best time of day when there's absolutely everything going on. We've been there when pink cockatoos have been sharing tiny waterholes with western grey kangaroos and red kangaroos, galahs and mulga parrots and mallee ringnecks and just everything. Oh, and there's crimson chats up there at the moment. And
That's-
orange chats having baths in the water.
Yeah. I did see someone making a fuss about crimson chats in coming into this extreme south of their range recently.
Yeah.
So
It's just bizarre.
So what are some of the real highlights on the trips that you've made to Mungo that a list keeping birder would go spare about?
The spotted bowerbird that I missed, that my partner got.
Yeah.
Hasn't been seen in that area like a decade. Luckily, they got a photograph. And there were actually a few records in the area at that same time, I think, a couple of years ago. The chestnut quail thrush is always a bit of a highlight.
Very difficult to see at the best of times.
Mm-hmm. That's always a good one. And they can be reasonably reliable in certain spots, but hard to see. No, that's always the trick. What else? The crimson chats and the orange chats always stand out for me as something special. They're not always there. Cockatiel. Cockatiel.
Flocks of cockatiels are pretty amazing when they turn up. Well, it's a white-fronted chat, which is sort of our common chat, even though so many people will never see it. Is that hanging out there too? Yep.
They're the most common one, and so you see them, and then there'll be one in amongst there who's an orange chat. Sometimes. We saw a budgie fly over once. That was spectacular. We were with a birding group from the US actually, so it was pretty good. They were very excited. And it's the variability of the arid lands that I find really exciting as a birder. It's not reliable. Nothing's reliable, really, except maybe mallee ringnecks. But seeing, is it a noisy firebird? A little firebird. Down there near Mildura one time, you get these influxes because of the conditions. And good rainfall leads to really good birding conditions for sometimes 2 years afterwards. So some of them come hard on the heels of the rain. Others come later when the vegetation has benefited from the rain but has already gone to fruit and seed and that kind of thing. So it's an exciting time.
When you do the Mungo tour, do you swing past Menindee, have a look at the lakes, and do you go to Mootwingie as well?
No, we're the slowest tour operator in the whole world, Grant. We tend to go to a place and just stop. So Mungo's enough. We do a 5-day tour, and one day is Hatter on the Vic side. Hatter is amazing, but the rest is Mungo.
And Hatter's quite a large area to check out. So do you go to like the Lake Hatter, Little Lake Hatter, or do you look at that Broken Creek, that part of the park? Where do you go?
We mostly go into the main visitor centre, the big lake at the bottom there, and then we go straight up through the middle if we can, past Mornpool and the other small lakes, up towards the top road, which goes out towards, where does it go? You know where I mean? So that north-south road that goes right through the middle.
Yep.
But we only have a day there. The rest of the time is in Mungo. But We try not to drive a lot on our tours because it's hard to see birds when you're driving, really.
Do you walk around Mournpool? Do you walk around the whole lake, or do you
No.
and have a look?
No.
Yeah.
We don't hike for the sake of hiking on our tours. Everything we do is in order to see wildlife. So we will walk a short distance if we need to, a kilometre or two, if there's a lot of wildlife going to be at the end of it or along the way. But we never do hikes for the sake of doing hikes. We don't do drives for the sake of them either. We're much more like an African safari operator. So we're only going to places when there's wildlife, or if there's likely to be wildlife. I couldn't care less about the tops of mountains or lookouts or anything unless they've got something to see that you can't see halfway down,
Same here. Oh, look, another distant valley. Yeah.
Great. But, where's the bird?
I'm the same. I used to travel with someone who would pull off at every scenic lookout, and I'd be going, oh, kill me now. How many different angles of the same valley can you see? I think I'd rather check out the towns and then check out the river, the riverine locations. But no, we've got to go to lookouts. So, yeah.
Another place we love is the Northern Territory, the top end, and we did a fantastic tour up there for 3 weeks in the top end with a couple from the United States, just as a private tour in 2019. And I don't know if you know Mick Jerram up there. He was working with us. He's based in Katherine. Fantastic guy, amazing birder. He'd be really worth you talking to at some stage on a Thursday, Grant.
I think I sent him an email last year. So
he's been very busy.
Yes, I think he is very busy. I do think I sent him an email last year, but probably before anyone had ever listened to any of the episodes, actually. So,
now's the time.
Exactly.
But he gave us a list of things to do on this one day. I think we made it to 2 of them. We're so slow, but we saw so much in those 2 places that we couldn't leave. 5 hours later, we're still at the same spot, and that's when we saw the big flocks of budgies after, I think it was 5 hours there. We sat down, we had coffee, we watched as the Gouldian finches came through. It's like, why would you leave? Really? No, we're slow.
And look, I don't know if this is the way you tend to be when you're not working, but I always like to go back to the places I've been before rather than continually wanting to go to new places, because I like watching how places evolve and how they change and the seasons. And do you prefer to race around to new places or to go to familiar watering holes?
I love to go to familiar places because I think you see more when you've been there a couple of times before. The spot where that's my partner just walking in. The spot where the oriole was nesting last time. So you have a look up there and you go, oh, look, there's one there. And then you see everything else that's new as well. I do like to see new places too. So it's a juggle sometimes to choose whether you go to a new place or whether you go to the same place, and you just have to do a bit of both.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the hard thing, isn't it? And sometimes it's easier to go to the same place, and if you go to the same place, you might see more than you saw before. So it's like colouring in a colouring book. You can finish the drawing sometimes if you go back to the same place rather than start a new page.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
So what have we got? We've got East Gippsland, we've got the Northern Territory, we've got Mungo. Where else are your specialty places?
We've got a new one which is coming up, Exmouth Ningaloo in WA, which I think is fully booked actually. No, there's a couple of places left in September. And we went over there initially ourselves a couple of years ago to see friends who run Exmouth Dive and Whale Sharks.
Oh, okay.
Boat
Okay.
tour.
Yeah.
Great people, very strong conservation ethic, and we love what they do. And I think we were there for about 4 days and we could not bear to leave. There is so much wildlife around Exmouth and the Cape Range on land as well as in the water. So the whale shark that we went there for was a tiny part of the experience. So we said to our friends over there, why aren't you doing land tours? My God, this is amazing. And they said, oh, we don't really do land tours. So we put together a package with them. It's partly on boats, doing some private boat trips with them into the Exmouth Gulf as well as out into the reef, because the Gulf is absolutely full of marine life. But people don't go in there on the regular sort of scheduled tours. But there's a good chance of seeing dugongs if you go into the Gulf, and who knows what else. Wow, amazing. And we're going out to the Murin Islands as well to do some survey work on there. The Murin Islands are just off the Cape Range Peninsula. There's 2 islands, and go and look for a bird list on there of that island, and there's barely anything ever been done. Scientists have done it, but regular, e-birders don't do it.
They don't get there. I'm guessing.
No.
Is it part of a park, or is it a private holding?
Yeah, it's part of the park. Yeah.
Okay. And what do you expect to see there?
Good question. I'll be cataloguing every reptile I see because I think they're underreported in a lot of places, especially the arid lands. I'll be taking photographs of every plant as well that I can see, because I think it's really important. From a bird point of view, I think Spinifex bird has been recorded on the Murin Islands, which would be a first for me.
Yeah, that's pretty unexpected, I would have thought.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know. Hang on. It makes me want to check my bird list now. But there's some really interesting birds in that area. The Rufous crowned emu wren, the Rufous field wren, all there on the Cape Range. There's a chance they could be on some of these islands as well.
How far offshore are those islands?
Not very far. It's easy, close to the mainland, so it won't take us long to get out there. Snorkelers go out there, divers and things go out there, so the underwater life's been, reasonably well catalogued, I think, but the land, no.
So, well, hopefully there isn't a big pest issue there, them being so close to the mainland, or hopefully people haven't been dumping their unwanted cats or something out there. Because crazy people do things like that. How far is that from the Abrolhos?
Oh, fair way from the Abrolhos. Hang on a second. I can get you some of these details in a fair amount of.
And are we talking several hundred kilometres?
Yes, from the Abrolhos.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say. Now let's see. So off the tip of the Cape Range, so north of Exmouth, the Murin Islands are only 10 kilometres off. the top of there, heading towards Onslow, Barrow Island, up there.
Okay.
And the Abrolhos is way down over here, I think. Where's that? Oh no, that's West Wallaby. Yeah, probably 200 or 300 kilometres north.
So,
yeah.
So you might have a few of the same species, but unlikely that that many of the bush birds are going to be the same.
No, that could be quite exciting. And I had to talk to a scientist who'd done some work over there, and he said, yeah, it's teeming with life. Amazing. So,
yeah.
And I just really see, even if we don't see anything that's rare or endangered, I just think it's really important to fill in these gaps in Australia, because we are a small population with a huge continent, and there really should not be a single square on eBird that's not had a survey done in it, really. We should make a bigger effort.
And one of the great things about going to like an island that people aren't really interested in except for swimming around it is that you see an intact habitat, and so you can see what it would be like if we didn't have goats and sheep and cows and rabbits and whatever not running around on all of these worn places on the mainland. So that's part of the learning experience. So, so if someone goes on one of your tours, how many people are they going with? It's not like a bus of 45 people doing sing-songs, is it?
Oh, hell no. No. Most of our tour groups are 8 or less. Occasionally we go a little bit over if we're doing something special like Exmouth, but they're very small groups.
So if you take a group of 8, how are you traveling? Is that like two tricked out 4-wheel drives, or you take a 4-wheel drive and a mini bus? Or
Yep, all of the above. Yeah,
whatever
we can get hold of. Yeah. Sometimes there's mini buses available. Sometimes it's 4-wheel drives if it needs to be. It's the vehicle is kind of something that needs to be comfortable and work, but it's certainly not our main focus. It's just a means of getting from A to B in a certain amount of comfort. And the same with accommodation with us. We're not there because of the fancy accommodation. Look, that's great when you're going for a honeymoon, but we stayed in Timber Creek with these wonderful Americans in a motel room that was, just basically managing. We didn't care. I mean, we saw Gouldian finches and black bittern. I mean, why? And budgies. Oh, who cares what you stay in, as long as it's clean and it has a dunny.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I always just take a swag. So
yeah.
I prefer to stay outside rather than inside, but but sometimes you have to watch the news, don't you? So.
Well, it's lovely to stay in a place that's nice. If there's an option, we'll take it. But I'd much rather go to a place that is absolutely full of wildlife and stay in a place that's a bit ordinary.
And now, for people who are curious to maybe be part of your tours, I want to know generally who are your customers.
Well, I'm biased, but they're awesome. They are interested in everything. Generally, most of our clients are not full-on list tickers, and very happy to spend quality time with a really special bird, rather than dashing off to tick another one, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
We have taken some list tickers on tours as well, and we've had a ball with them. So there's a bit of a blend there, but I think our the bulk of our clientele are just as interested in learning about different species of kangaroo, how to recognise different rock wallabies, reptiles, plants to some degree, and birds. So the whole thing, which is how we are as well as people. We, if it's wild and it breathes and it's native, we love it. If it's a bull ant, we love it. There's no limits on that. Fauna is exciting and fascinating to watch, and we love it.
And before we had the COVID situation, were most of your clients internationals?
Yeah, about 99%.
So how have you managed to exist where the only people available to go on your tours are Australians? How are you finding? Well, have you had to shift your marketing message much, and are you breaking into that domestic market now that people can't go to Paris or can't go shopping in Milan?
Yeah, and what we're finding is really exciting is that Australians are renewing their interest in Australia as a result of this. And it's not just that they're being forced to stay here and they've got no other option. I think there's been this build-up of genuine interest in more of Australia that's been happening over a decade. And this has given people a fantastic opportunity to explore that and to maybe get out of their habits of going overseas and get into a habit of staying here more often, which is great. So we were starting to work into that world a little bit because of trips like Exmouth and the Northern Territory and Mungo always had more appeal to Aussies than some of our other tours. So we were starting to work with that already. And then COVID gave us a fantastic chance to just think about what we wanted for the business and reset a lot of things that we just didn't have time to do before. We were so busy. It was a little bit crazy, actually, because the Echidna Walkabout pre-COVID was very successful and we were run off our feet all the time. So now we've had a chance to have a really good think about where we want to go and make some ambitious plans, make some controversial decisions about how we go forward, and test it out in a market that's completely new. Why not?
I can't resist controversy, Janine. So can you tell us a controversial plan or two?
Yeah, we by telling the market that it's conservation, whether they like it or not, we will lose some travel agents, I think. We will gain some, and they will surprise us. The ones who jump on board, in a big way, might not be the ones we expect, really. But we'll be saying no to some of the tours we used to do in the past, and that and we already have actually, and I know that's caused some disturbance in the marketplace.
Can we talk about that? Because I'm not 100% sure what you mean. So I'm pretty sure that most people won't be aware. So what do you have to say no to, and what will what would cause a travel agent that had been a partner of yours in the past, because that's what it is, it's a codependency, what would cause them to say no about a conservation tour focus?
Well, the big one is that we've effectively stopped running day tours. And that's caused a little bit of a disruption. We're telling them...
So what was a day tour? Because from what I could see, is that most of your tours seem to be multi-day sort of expeditions. So does that mean you don't do day tours from one of the locations that you visit as part of another tour? No. Okay. Phil, how does that work?
Our most popular tour before COVID was a single day tour, starting and returning in Melbourne. And it went out to the west, to the Yuyangs, and went out to see koalas in the wild and kangaroos in the wild, and lots of other wildlife as well. And it was disgracefully popular. It was fantastic.
And I'm guessing that was sold as part of a package by some other operator, so that they would do the penguins one day, and then you'd do the kangaroo one, and then they'd go to a petting zoo or something on a different day. Is that
Possibly,
sort of how?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was an easy sell for people who are coming to Australia for 14 days, where you do 2 nights Melbourne, 2 nights Sydney, 2 nights in Cairns. So they don't have time to do any more than a day tour, and we slotted in very nicely to that particular program. So in saying no to those, because we really believe that the amount of fuel involved in running day tours is hard to justify for an operator like ourselves. The impact of day tours on an area very close to a large city is really noticeable, and that the best way we can support our wildlife and our regions, our local communities, is to get people out of that radius, which means staying 3 or 4 days in a place like Orbost. Well, I can take 8 people to Orbost for 3 nights, 4 days, and the town feels the benefit of those 8 people. Whereas I can take 8 people to the Yuyangs, the town doesn't feel any benefit at all, really. Well, it does, but it's small. It might be the cost of lunch,
it's 10 cans of Coke, half a dozen pies, and a few bags of chips.
The equivalent of, exactly.
We hadn't talked about this beforehand, so it's really interesting that these things have come up. That I'm guessing when you say the fuel is hard to justify, you're not talking about the $85 or $150 as a business expense. You're talking about the miles, the carbon impact, and the footprint that a day tour leaves, because you're there. I don't know, let's say you did 50 in a year. There are other operators who are going on different days, so that small patch of ground is being hit every day by a whole bunch of people gawking with binoculars or whatever, and tramping on those paths, the compaction and all that kind of stuff. That is not good on any natural system. Now, here's an opportunity to be controversial. Do you think most tour operators even factor that in when, like, do you think that they have that the less than obvious impacts are part of their cost benefit analysis each year?
I think that most small and medium-sized tour operators in Australia, which, by the way, is 95% of them, are just managing to make a living. They don't have the luxury of making a choice like we've just made.
That was where I was going to go. The imperative to turn a dollar overrides. Well, what you and I would say is doing the right thing, but that other people would say, no, it's a necessary compromise.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the travel industry as a whole doesn't help them to make these decisions. So for so many years, Grant, I was trying to get the industry to book our extended multi-day tours. They loved us. They knew that what we did was great. They kept on telling us this. They came out on Famils to see the extended tours, loved them. Every client who went on them loved them. There was absolutely nothing standing in the way of those agents booking those multi-day tours, except that it was a tiny bit harder to do that.
Harder and probably less profitable per.
No,
they're
that's
making
the weird
more.
thing. They made more commission as well.
But it was harder to do.
The multi-day tours. But it was a little bit harder for their staff because they didn't run every day. And when your staff are so flat out busy that they're barely making it through their quota each day, adding a little bit of complication just really makes it hard.
But that's the rub, isn't it? Like I was going to ask you who the industry is, because I think you were using the term industry, which I think of as a pretty catch-all phrase, but you were talking particularly about the travel agents, the booking agents. You weren't talking about the whole sort of ecotourism certified operators kind of industry. So we should be particular about that. But then the other word you used there, which made my ears prick up, is quota. And that's how a lot of these things work, isn't it? That it's just on bums on seats. So the only way around that is direct marketing, isn't it? Is that you need to get inbound inquiries, and I'm guessing that has helped you make the pivot because you match up with the people with the same sort of objectives, conservation objectives, the same mindset. Your ideal client is probably going to find you rather than be sent to you. Am I on the right track there?
That's part of it, but it's not all of it. By removing the day tours, we've removed the easy option as well. So we don't any longer allow booking agents to take the easy option and book our day tour. So if you want to travel with us, if your clients have heard about us, the 3-day or the 4-day tour is your only option. And guess what? They will book that because it is the best option they can take. Now, not as many of them will, but that's okay. We're good with that. The other thing is to work with the media, to work with Tourism Australia and the local state bodies to grow your profile and to talk to podcasters.
Hey, that's right. That's right. Because I am the media.
That kind of thing. Because the more well-known you are, the more people connect with you, the more likely they are to go, you know what, I think I would enjoy spending 4 days with those people. Their values align with mine. And I'm going to go to my travel agent and I'm going to say, you must book this 4-day tour with Echidna Walkabout. I won't accept anything less. And that's how we can shift the industry and still work closely with all these wonderful partners who we've been working with for so long.
And when I was doing my homework on you, Janine, one of the gateways into your website is, I think it's Australian Wildlife Tours. Now,
Journey.
Australian Wildlife Journey. Now that seems to be a conglomerate, a cooperative of like-minded tour businesses. Can you tell us anything about that? Is that a new thing? Because I remember the first time I went to find your website, I wasn't directed to like this all-encompassing website, but nowadays, depending on which link I click, I go to a number of tour options.
Well, that's, as you say, a collection of independently owned wildlife tour operators in Australia. I set it up with a couple of really good friends in the industry who have a similar approach to running tours to we do. So I still remember the phone call from Craig Wickham from Exceptional Kangaroo Island saying we should work together on something like this. And I said, yes, we really should. And then Sab Lord up in the Northern Territory, Lord's Arnhem Land Safaris, he was the other founding member of that. So the idea was that all of us are independent and locally owned, and we will never have the marketing power on our own that some of the multinationals do. But a lot of people want to travel with a locally owned operator who's independent. And a lot of people know that the money you spend with a locally owned business is staying in the community that you want to help, you want to go to. So we felt that could be a wonderful thing. And also we were concerned that in Australia, the differentiation between captive wildlife viewing and wild wildlife viewing is not very clear.
Yeah, that's been a big issue for me. That and a lot of organisations that attract a lot of dollars from both corporate partners and government are sending mixed messages, like having tourists stand next to a koala with some manna gum that's been pruned off a tree and hanging there, or cuddling one. To me, that's not a conservation message. And I can't remember who I had this debate with, but I'm sure it's on one of the episodes. That tells you indirectly, because every time you have the tourism minister do an announcement, or the conservation minister, whoever it is, do an announcement standing next to someone hugging a koala, that tells us that the important thing is that there's a koala in the zoo. That's not the important thing. The important thing is you can stand under a koala in a tree in a wild place. That's the value. And yeah, I have a real issue. I don't know whether it rankles with you that
it does. It really does.
And it's the easy way for the government to get on air for the news every night, looking like they're doing something, but they're not doing the right thing, is my view. I mean,
it does send a very strong message. It also sends a message that animal really doesn't have any rights.
And why are governments giving money to organisations like Australia Zoo? I don't have anything against Australia Zoo. Let's get that right out there. None of the private zoos, I don't have anything against them, but they're private zoos. So why is government money going to them, unless it's a program run by the government that they get a bit of a part of. But it seems to be that they come up with a program and then the government funds them. Am I right?
There's far too much focus on it in Australia, and we're not following we're not on message with the rest of our travelling public around the world, I'm afraid. Most of our clients from overseas, if they walked into an airport in Australia and saw a picture of a person cuddling a koala, they would be disgusted that a government would support such a thing that is well known to be, irresponsible. If I walked into an airport in South Africa and someone was cuddling a lion cub, I would be disgusted. And it used to have that, and those were taken down because it's known to be just a bad message to give the world. Unfortunately, I think.
I mean, a lot of African countries have got this dilemma in that they go, come to our country and shoot our wildlife. Good for tourism.
Yeah.
We're preserving lions so that someone can shoot them and hang their head on the wall. I mean, it just seems bonkers.
Yeah.
If they're worth preserving, preserve them.
And yet some of them, even with, high levels of poverty, have managed to resist that. And I think there's no wildlife hunting allowed in Botswana. And I think that's still the case. But they've got much greater pressure than us, and yet they've been very strong in some of these, in some of this area. Australia can do a lot better, I think, with a lot of these things. So our clients don't want to go on a jumping crocodile cruise. They just.
What? They don't want to feed a dead chook to it. They don't want to hang a dead chook out for a crocodile.
We don't need
worse.
that. No. I mean, birders generally understand this very well. You can't tick it if it's captive, can you? No brainer.
Yeah.
And yet, for some reason, it's okay when it's a koala or a kangaroo. No, it's not okay. Yeah. Seeing an animal in the wild has the most conservation value. And you indirectly or directly are supporting the places that have protected their natural landscapes. So we go to Orbost, we love Orbost. It is surrounded by national parks and fantastic wildlife. Now, you can say whatever you like about the logging industry. It was very damaging. But those people over there who we go to see now have had a part to play in protecting their natural land, and that's big, and they've got wildlife. So we go there and we support them, and that's how it should be. And if a community works hard to resist habitat destruction, to resist, housing developments that are unnecessary, they deserve to be rewarded by people like us coming to visit their wonderful place. That's what we do.
And that, I know we're time's marching on, but there's one of the great conflicts that, and it's an artificial conflict, that if you're a greenie, you have to be against the people who are engaged in logging. No, you don't. And I don't think anyone sets that up. What you can be against is unsustainable logging, unsustainable practices. And what we need to all do is insist that any of those activities, be it four-wheel driving, be it anything, be it tour guides into any national park, into campsites, it needs to be done in a sustainable and light touch manner. So if there's ways to do logging where it is not wiping out critical habitat, you can do that. But some industries are mature. Not every town has a printing press and a newspaper anymore, because that industry has run its case. Run it. The only place you're going to see Cobb and Co now is on the side of a bus. You aren't going to see Cobb and Co on a stagecoach, because some industries run their course and people need to be found another way to make a living. And it seems to me that people who know the forests can become essential parts of the tourism industry. That
we can't punish them forever for having had logging businesses. That just doesn't make any sense. They have transitioned, is my point. I'm actually against logging of native forests now, because I think the time has come for it to stop. The time came 20 years ago, I think.
Yeah. And especially in some habitats. Some habitats can still manage some kind of harvesting, but not the clear felling that we're doing. It's bonkers.
No. And so, I think you got to look for the people who are doing the right things and support them. You can't just boycott an entire town, because one person did the wrong thing. The people who are doing the right thing deserve our support.
Absolutely. And the carrot has to be out there. And if people can make money out of tours and preserving locations and improving facilities for bird nerds and animal nuts, if you can do that and you can turn a sustainable dollar, well, let's do it. Let's all do it. Well, Janine, I know we've been going for ages, but do you want to do the bird emergency questions?
Yeah, I'm having fun.
Good. I know, because you're not well. You are a self-confessed bird nerd. So let's see.
Oh yeah.
Let's see how we go. Favorite bird?
That's so hard. It's whichever one is in front of me.
Hard hitting journalism on the podcast. That's what we're all about, Janine.
Okay. I'll give you one. The favourite bird that I haven't actually seen yet, that I'm dying to see, is a Chatham albatross.
Well, that's your bucket list bird.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
But that's okay.
So favourite bird is painted honeyeater.
Painted honeyeater. That's a ripper. That's a corker. Yeah. How long are they going to be with us? That's the big question, isn't it? Love the painted honeyeater.
Gorgeous thing.
Yeah, I love the painted honeyeater. Have to put a picture up for that one, because heaps of people won't know it at all. So your bucket list bird is the Chatham albatross. Have to do some cross promotion when World Albatross Day rolls around.
Yes.
I'm in the process. We did World Albatross Day last year, where we got a bunch of experts talking about albatrosses. This year I've set myself a challenge. How many species of albatross are there, Janine? Can you remember?
Depends on the taxonomy that you choose. I think.
Okay.
So I think it's 14 to 19.
Yeah. Some people say 12. Some people go up to 22 even. But I'm trying to do an interview with an expert on every species of albatross. So there we go. Set myself a challenge. Set myself a challenge with that one.
Yeah.
Well, hey, if you're into albatrosses, hit me up on Twitter or that's the best place to get me, because I'm still looking for some experts on some albatrosses. It's pretty hard. But
I've got a few experts I know. Yeah.
Well, send them over to me, because that's so that's going to be World Albatross Day. I'm glad you're into albatrosses. Don't they need a hand?
We are so lucky in Australia. It is just like living in albatross heaven. We go to Tasmania and see 10 species. It's incredible.
I mean, the only place that might be better would be New Zealand. But,
exactly. And then
New Zealand.
Yeah.
New Zealand. What's your favourite piece of kit when you're out out looking at wildlife, out looking at birds?
I'm a binoculars girl, not a camera girl. I don't go anywhere without binoculars, really. And I've got the little harness thing, the bra.
Oh, yeah, very good.
Love it. Oh, love it.
Takes the strain off the shoulders.
Yep. Certainly does. I need to have a hat on if I'm birding. There's too much glare if you don't have a hat in Australia.
And have you got the neck bit? Are you protecting your neck with a? No. Oh yes, of course. How about Steve? Has he got that as a fashion accessory under his hat?
My partner?
Yeah.
No. He goes commando under the hat.
Commando under the hat. Very
he just gets a very brown neck.
Very, very, very good. And what field guide do you use?
ABG.
ABG. Yeah. Very good.
It's a winner.
Very good.
I resisted for a while. I was a Simpson and Day girl, but this one is so good. Oh, wow!
And are you migrating over to the apps as well?
No.
You're using eBird all the time?
Yeah, all the time. Too much.
So as you see it, are you entering it, or are you keeping a paper note as you go?
Yeah, I'm using the mobile app at the time. I love it. It's so good. And it means I list more often than I would do otherwise if I was double handling it. And I just do little lists all the time, 20 minutes here, half an hour there. Not just in the backyard, but whenever I'm in a good birdie spot, I'll do a list. I love it.
Do you know your number?
Worldwide?
Well, how you allocate your numbers are up to you. Do you are you keeping an Aussie list or
so worldwide 1,200 and something.
Very good.
But that's Africa and Australia. Australia 500 and something.
Well, that's pretty good. You're well on the way.
But the Vic list is maybe my most important list because I really want to get up to 400 in Vic. I'm not there yet, though. I'm still a way back in Victoria. But I just love my Victorian birds. I just love seeing a bird in my own home state.
Well, have you got a backyard list?
No, I don't really have a backyard list. Port Melbourne, bit ordinary.
Well, I don't know. Have you got the Eastern Spinebill at home?
I have had, yep. I saw one today, actually, down at Westgate Park, which is kind of in my backyard. So, 347 in Victoria.
347. You're well on the way.
Yeah, so I'll get there eventually to 400.
All right. Well, the bucket list bird, you've said you've got an albatross. But what's your bucket list Victorian bird? What's the Victorian bird that you haven't ticked off yet?
That's an easy one. Rose-crowned fruit dove.
Oh, the rose-crowned fruit dove. Where do you think you're likely to encounter that? I mean, it's going to be in Gippsland.
Right. Yeah. But there have been a handful of records of rose-crowned fruit doves in East Gippsland over the years who have only been found because they've hit a window and died or something like that. One has made it to Tasmania alive and was ticked over there by a bunch of people. Those birds are coming through Victoria, but they are not being ticked alive. Why?
Well,
this drives me crazy.
I think the answer to that is that they are moving through areas where there are not many people, and they are not birds that demand your attention. You need to be out looking for them. I think that we've got probably, I think in Eastern Victoria, there's still probably a lot of birds that are moving around that just haven't been seen, you know.
I agree. I've spent the last few years on this project trying to figure out where they might be or what they're eating. And I've learned so much doing it. It's been a fantastic journey. I may never see them with my own eyes, but if someone else sees one alive, I will just be so happy.
So what do you think's been like your most exciting get in Victoria? Let's keep it focused on Victoria. What's giving you the biggest thrill when you've been able to enter it into eBird?
The painted honey eater.
Painted honey?
Yeah.
And where did you see that, up near Mildura or
the Yuyangs?
You saw that in the Yuyangs. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, they get around. I
think it remains the only site record in the Yuyangs. There was a herd record a few years before me. This was quite a few years ago, and I was out there and looked up and saw a bird that I didn't immediately know. And in the Yuyangs, I know all the birds. And I was just shocked. I thought, I've seen this in the book somewhere, but what is it? So I sent a photo on Twitter, actually, to someone, and they confirmed it as a painted honey eater. I was stoked as anything. And I mean, Grant, this was a few years ago. I wasn't as keen as I am now. And this was just a complete spin out. I was wrapped.
Yeah, that's a great record. But I do think that they're probably in more localities than we expect, because they do follow the blossom, and well, they're not a cryptic bird, but they are hard to see. I think the same thing about frybirds in Victoria, because I think everyone just thinks, no, it's a bloody wattlebird. So just see it. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. The only way you can tell is if you get a photo or if you record them. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think your bucket list location. Where do you want to go that you haven't been to go and look at birds?
That's easy as well. There's two. Can I have two?
Yeah, you can have two buckets. You got two arms.
The first is the Broome Bird Observatory, which I was planning to go to just as COVID hit. I'm gutted because I still haven't got there. I love shorebirds. Oh, gosh, I love shorebirds, especially big flocks of shorebirds. I just can't wait. And the other one is Bremer Bay, the pelagic trips that a friend of ours does, the Naturalist Charters trips, where they go out to see the orca to the way east of Perth. We were booked to go there in April 2020 for my 50th birthday, and I missed out.
Now, I just had a cursory look at my atlas. Way east of Perth.
Way east of Perth, right? Over near Fitzgerald River National Park, towards the Great Australian Bight. Right.
Wow. Ah, okay. So southeast of Perth. I was just thinking.
Yeah.
I was just thinking. Where are the orcas have started to catch the Indian Pacific? Where are we going with this? So.
Yeah, good point. And they're seeing some interesting petrels out there. And wow.
Yeah. I think again, seabirds, shorebirds, because there's comparatively so few people in the places that those birds are, that I think there's many, many more than that are visiting our shores than we ever know about. And who knows, on some of these remote places, maybe they're breeding. We just don't know.
That's right.
It's a world of discovery. What better way to discover our wonderful Australian bird life, and more generally our Australian wildlife, than hitching up with Janine? And that, Janine, what's the best entry point for someone who wants to have a look at what you've got coming up? Are you happy for people to seek you out and ask some questions? Maybe there are some questions that we haven't covered in the podcast. There might be the odd other question that someone wants to ask. For instance, do you make damper and have sing-alongs on your trips into Mungo?
No.
How can you be an Australian trip and not make damper and have a sing-along?
Right.
Come on.
Well, if you want to make the damper, I'm very happy to eat it with Vegemite. It's really nice. No, but yeah, love to chat. I love Twitter, actually. Twitter's great for questions and things like that. So I'll make sure I keep an eye on both of the platforms after this. And the website's the best way to see what we do.
So, well, you have to tell people what your Twitter handle is, because you haven't got yours up on the screen like mine.
No, naughty me. It's at Echidna Walkabout _. That's a really annoying one. But
what? Why? You've got an underscore at the end of it because someone had called themselves Echidna Walkabout.
Oh, because one of our staff set up an account
and then lost the password.
No, I'm thinking of Instagram. No. Sorry. No, it's Echidna W. Oh, sorry. No, it was Instagram. Someone lost the password. Oh my God. Yeah, it's Echidna W.
Echidna W.
Yeah.
That's easy. So check out Janine on Twitter, because Twitter's a really in the nature world, in the bird world and whatnot. Twitter's a really cool place to hang out. I don't know why, but bird Twitter's really good. People don't tend to be obnoxious. So unlike political Twitter, which it's just a cesspool. But I can't resist it sometimes, because conservation is now inherently political.
Yes, it is. You have to be.
So let's just end on what's coming up for this year, Janine. What do you hope to be able to get done in 2021, even with COVID buzzing around and our borders closed?
Well, I've got 45,000 trees to plant.
We haven't even covered your tree planting. My jingos.
I've got 22,000 of them around the Yuyangs, and we're being set back by a week because of this lockdown, which is irritating. But anyway, we'll find a way. And then we've got Exmouth to go to, and then we've got the top end, and the Catherine Bird Festival is on just after our top end tour, so we're going to go to that as well.
Fantastic.
Gouldian finches.
We've got a couple of Gouldian episodes about to come out tonight.
Hooded parrots. And so many other things. Oh my God. Just a spin out.
Magnificent. Well, birders, bird nerds, if you are contemplating a tour, now if you're not confident that you're going to get value out of going on your own to any of those places, that's really the main difference.
Sorry, you never do.
Is hook up with someone who knows where to go. Sounds like you've got spies on the ground everywhere too, Janine, letting you know where things are. So, yeah, so that's how to ensure you have a great birding holiday. If the borders open up quickly, if you're overseas, look up Janine. Of course, there's going to be links in everywhere where I get to put links, and Janine would love to hear from you. I've really enjoyed speaking to you, Janine. Thanks so much for all of this time. I hope we can talk again. Keep me updated whenever you see anything amazing or something funny happens, or you can any kind of developments.
Good.
Keep us in the loop. Okay.
I will. Thank you.
And dear listener, this is our first Tour Guide Thursday. Tell us if you want me to keep it going or if you want me to kill it. Anyway, I hope it keeps going because we want to really expose some of the options for you if you want to get out and about, other than going to Australia Zoo.
Thank you, Grant. Appreciate the opportunity. Really, it was good of you.
It's been a pleasure, and I'm sure there's you can tell a story. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that. This is the Bird Emergency. I'm Grant Williams. That's been Janine Duffy. See you later.